We cross to our correspondent now, Rosie Bichard, who's in Brussels. Rosie, thank you for being with us. All right, so this comes at a time when it might be overshadowed by the threat of war. Surely the EU leaders, at least, are worried right now about tensions between Russia and Ukraine, and that may be top of their minds, not what's going on in Africa.
Francis, you are right that there are fears in Brussels that this landmark summit, which really is an important summit for both Europe and Africa, at least that's what the organisers say, that this will be overshadowed by these fears and this crisis around tensions between Russia and Ukraine. And in fact, those fears may have proved well-founded today, because just in the last few hours, we had an announcement from the EU side that ahead of the talks with African Union leaders, European Union leaders on their own will hold separate talks in a sort of mini summit on the sidelines of this summit, where they will uniquely discuss the Ukraine crisis. Now, EU leaders have not met together in person since December, and a lot has changed since then, particularly on the continent. We've heard from the bloc's top foreign policy advisor today, from the bloc's foreign policy chief, that this is the most dangerous moment Europe has faced since the Cold War. So it certainly is the top of their minds, but there are fears this could push relations with the African Union further down the agenda, and that is something that the EU leaders want to avoid. At least they want to avoid that appearing to be the case.
Yeah, this is difficult, so it may become a little NATO meeting of sorts in Brussels. Then if we look at AU-EU relationships, there's a lot of talk about what's already happened, what's already been exposed, the inequality in access to vaccines. And we see that many African countries are still crying out, saying we can't access those vaccines. What has Europe done? Maybe this is too little too late, or could there be real change on the cards here?
Well, the last time EU and AU leaders met was back in 2017, so imagine no one had even heard of COVID-19 then. And since then, the pandemic really has frayed relations. The European Union insists it is a leader when it comes to vaccinating the world. It has shared around 145 million vaccine doses with African countries, but campaigners tell me that they certainly think that's not enough. And President Ramaphosa has certainly earned himself a reputation in Brussels as one of the EU's fiercest critics on this point when it comes to, for example, the patent rights, so how easy it is to make and reproduce vaccines. So we don't know whether there will be any kind of breakthrough here. If it does happen, it will be behind closed doors. We aren't expecting any announcement on this. What we are expecting is the EU to really try and highlight and put to the fore the support it is providing, and that comes in the form of vaccine sharing, but also in terms of new funds available through a new global infrastructure initiative that the EU is hoping to highlight. It calls its Global Gateway Initiative, and interestingly enough, that is widely viewed as a bid to try and rival China's influence on the African continent. So while we see this is also about the EU trying to perhaps some would say trying to kind of make that next move on a geopolitical chessboard.
If we talk about behind closed doors, President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to attend, and those sideline meetings are very important. It's a chance to meet leaders from across Europe. Do we know anything about who he may be meeting up with?
Francis, let me just start by giving you a flavour of what the atmosphere is like here in Brussels. Now, leaders will be in this building behind me, so that's where these kind of behind closed doors talks will be taking place. And throughout this day, behind me in these streets, there have been sirens going off, there have been flashing lights, and that's because these leaders are starting to arrive. And we know that bilateral meetings are already taking place. And this really suggests that, it really might be in these kind of behind the scenes talks that we see something moving forward. We will have to wait and see what that actually brings. I will be here monitoring it for you. I will be here in Brussels at the summit tomorrow to bring you the latest on what we know about President Ramaphosa's moves and what he intends to bring to those meetings with partners. Now, just to preview that a little bit, not President Ramaphosa, but some other African leaders are in Paris, France tonight for a pre-summit particularly regarding security in the Sahel region. So we might expect some further announcements on that in the coming few hours. So big questions to answer, lots of talks to be followed, and I certainly will be keeping my ear to the ground to give you updates on that front.
All right, thank you very much. Please do. So a lot of talks on the sidelines of the talks that are very important for Africa, for African-European relationships. We know that security issues in Europe sometimes linked to what we've seen in terms of instability on our own continent. So a very important agenda. But like she says, European leaders are already meeting up to talk about what's happening with Ukraine and Russia. Rosie Bichard in Brussels for us tonight.